Am I the butthole for telling my husband that my doctor knows more than him and refusing to forgive him? My husband and I have been married for 4 years, together for 6, and this is the very first huge argument that we've ever had. I'm a 24-year-old woman, and I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant with his baby. He's a 31-year-old guy. When I was 20 weeks pregnant, my doctor diagnosed me with placenta previa, which, if you don't know, is basically when the placenta for my baby is covering the opening of my cervix. They told me that it would most likely move as my baby grew, but it never did, so I'm scheduled for a C-section in just 3 weeks. At 20 weeks, I was put on very light restrictions, but at 30, I got put on heavier restrictions like no running, no lifting or climbing, no standing for longer than 3 hours at a time, and, most importantly, no passionate hugging or vaginal exams. That's because my doctor told me that we want absolutely nothing to potentially make me bleed, which could lead to preterm birth. So I've been doing this all for 3 weeks, but it's been driving my husband effing insane. Every single day, he bothers me for intercourse. Every single day I tell him that I can't, and I remind him of the restrictions. I don't want to do it. Anyways, my tummy is so big and I'm always exhausted. He doesn't really like those answers. Finally, he came to me and started going on about how doctors sometimes dramatize things for the sake of their careers and more money. He said they push for C-sections. I was like, okay, whatever, but I know that I have this condition. Obviously, I'm going to follow the rules. He didn't take that answer, and we ended up having intercourse. A few hours after, I was having really heavy bleeding, and I got so scared. I was crying in the bathroom, trying to figure out what to do. I ended up calling my doctor, and she told me to come in right away. The whole car ride there, I was just sobbing, imagining that in 1 hour, I'd be having a C-section for an only 33-week-old baby. We quickly figured out that I am not in preterm labor, I was just bleeding, and as long as it stops, I'd be okay. It did, and I'm fine. But while I was there, my doctor asked my husband to leave, and she started asking me questions. She asked me if I did anything that I wasn't supposed to do. She was like, "This isn't accusatory. It's okay, it's just better to know if this was caused by something, or if it was random." I told her that we passionately hugged. She just went over all the restrictions again and gave me a bunch of information on domestic violence. She put them in my purse for me. I was so embarrassed. When we got into the car, I broke down and yelled at my husband, telling him to never do that to me again and telling him that my doctor knows more than him and knows what's best for me and the baby. He apologized, and I could tell that he really meant it. I've still been holding a grudge for days, and he's been groveling for days. He asked me how long I was going to make him apologize. I told him at least until the baby is born. Am I the butthole for that? All right, down in the comments, we have a reply from an OBGYN, and this is actually kind of scary. OBGYN here. What an effing idiot your husband is. A C-section for placenta previa is absolutely necessary. 750 milliliters of blood per minute goes to the uterus at term. 90% of that goes to the placenta. Literally, all of your blood can be outside of your body in a matter of minutes if you don't deliver surgically. This whole "we all want to do C-sections all the time for no reason" BS has got to go, because it gives laypeople the impression that they should disagree, using their 0 hours of scientific training, with absolute medical necessity. All of this is awful, and I'm sorry you're going through this. So out of curiosity, I looked this up, and the average adult has about 4,500 to 5,700 ml of blood. So if you're losing 750 milliliters of blood per minute, then you're looking at about 4 to 5 minutes of life before you just literally don't have any blood left. Then, 1 day later, OP posted an update. So originally my plan was to tell my doctor and my sister-in-law, maybe also my brother, but I wasn't looking forward to discussing those details with him. I rescheduled my weekly appointment with my doctor for tomorrow. I know that some people said that I'd be able to just walk in, but I didn't want to do that and then have to make some excuse to my husband. Your comments made me realize the severity of the situation, and honestly, I'm terrified. So, I called my sister-in-law when she got off work, and we had a really long conversation. I mentioned this in the comments of my previous post, but my sister-in-law and brother have never really liked my husband, especially not my sister-in-law. She was very supportive and kind, and we talked for a long time. I guess I can admit now that it wasn't intercourse, it was the R word. We talked about that more than anything else. So my husband got home kind of early and saw how I was upset. I really was planning on getting myself together before he came home, but I didn't have time. Still, I wasn't going to tell him anything, but he was being so kind, which he really usually is. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. But today especially, he was so kind and so worried about me. I know it's stupid to explain the situation, but I did. I don't know why. I'm just used to telling him my problems, I guess. It was a mistake, and I know that. I'm really trying not to be stupid anymore, but it's hard to switch from thinking about him as my loving and caring husband to my husband who's hurting me. So I told him how he hurt me, and honestly, I'm scared of him now. He was like, "What? How?" I said, "By forcing me to have intercourse, by literally forcing my legs apart and telling me to calm down." He was like, "Oh my effing God, don't effing say that, that's a crime. Do you understand that? Do you understand you just accused me of marital R word?" Then he pushed me away from him. I started to apologize, and he started to say that it was okay, and he does this thing where he acts like I'm dumb. So finally I was like, yeah, actually I really do understand the situation now. It's not right, and it was marital R word. This resulted in a huge argument. Once again, he called me an idiot for even daring to say those words. I called him an abuser, and he literally laughed. He was like, "Who are you talking to? You don't know what you're talking about," and started to go on and on about things that I don't know about. He said that intercourse with your wife is an R word, no matter how you split it. I ended up trying to walk away, but he grabbed me by my wrist. I snatched my hands away, and he held up his hands like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that might be considered battery of a pregnant woman if we're going by your definitions." The condescending tone is what really drove me to the edge, and I told him that I don't want to be around him. He was like, "Fine, I'll go." I said, "No, I want to go. I want to be away from you." He threw a credit card at me and told me to go get a hotel, so I did, and here I am typing this now. My sister-in-law is on her way over right now, but I'm far from okay. He called me several times, but I won't answer. I've never seen him that angry before. I'm slightly concerned about what he'll do if I genuinely tell him that I want to leave and take the baby. He's the one who wanted to have a child, and I was convinced. He won't let me take the baby easily, and that terrifies me. Every time my daughter kicks, I just want to sob. I never thought that my own baby would make me cry like this, but I'm just so scared. Then one day later, I'll posted an update. During my last update, I mentioned having Braxton Hicks for the first time. I was urged to go to the hospital. I originally wasn't going to, but thank goodness that I did, because by the time I walked in the door, I was bleeding so heavily, it was flowing down my legs. Turns out I had a placental abruption. Pretty soon after, my daughter was born via emergency C-section. She's now less than a day old as I write this post, and I'm also being forced to deal with an attorney and get all this ready. She's tiny, but she's doing relatively well, so they tell me. I've received lots of care, and while it's all scary and hard, seeing my daughter makes it better. I'm fine. I will be fine, and so will she. Soon after my daughter was born, my sister-in-law came, and she's been by my side all day and very supportive. The attorney advised us to allow my husband visitation with my daughter while she's still in the NICU, so I did. I don't have any concerns of him hurting our daughter while in the hospital or anything like that. I've received lots of supportive messages from his coworkers and his side of the family, so I'm sure he's spinning the story that we're together and everything is fine. He's trying to act like everything is fine too. He's seen our daughter several times today, and I think that he was in the hospital with me during the C-section, but I'm honestly not sure. He came to my room this morning while the nurses were helping me take my first walk after the C-section. I was just emotional enough to let him into my room. I have to be honest and say that it wasn't easy to try and hate him. After all this, I still let him comfort me, and I still cried to him. But at the end, when he said, "You wouldn't have had to do this alone if you weren't acting this way," and he grabbed my face to make me kiss him, it reminded me of why exactly I'm doing this. So yeah, I'm not so sure what I'm going to do. Originally, I wanted to have my daughter in my home state so I could stay there with her, my sister-in-law, and my brother, but I highly doubt that my husband will allow me to take her there. My attorney says that I have options for custody, but likely only where we currently live. Honestly, that's okay. Being able to briefly hold my baby and seeing her and loving her so much has replaced everything else in my mind. I want to be safe, but I want her to be safe most of all. I won't do anything to put her in the situation that I was in. She's only 16 hours old, and she's all that I can think about and will ever think about for the rest of my life. Man, this is a story where Op's life was saved, metaphorically and then literally, by Reddit within like 48 hours. Reddit saved her life metaphorically by making her realize, "Yo lady, your husband is straight up abusing you," and then they literally saved her life by telling her to go to the hospital before she bleeds to death. Anyways, Op gets an easy 0 out of 5 buttholes, and I'm giving the husband, hopefully ex-husband soon, 4.5 out of 5 buttholes. Not a good mom. Am I the butthole for telling my sister that she's not a good mother and her kids deserve better? I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I currently live at my parents' place, along with my sister, who's 34, and her kids a 16-year-old girl, a 14-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy, and an 11-month-old baby. I moved in to help care for my mother, who has cancer, and to drive her around. My father can't drive due to a stroke, and my sister lost her driver's license. Since I work from home, I have a flexible schedule, and I'm the best option for assisting my parents. My sister's kids were a mess. My sister essentially has her own apartment in the house, so my parents never really checked in on her and the kids. One day, I noticed that my 10-year-old nephew's hair was matted. I took him to the hairstylist, who told me that his hair was molding. This is disgusting. This is gross. This is super gross. My sister works during the day, but often doesn't come home until midnight and goes straight to sleep. I found this out because my niece asked me to show her how to cook, as my sister was getting physically sick from the ready meals in the fridge. One day, I heard the baby crying and realized my sister was leaving the baby at home. Yo, the 16-year-old believes that it's her responsibility to take care of all the kids. She's burnt out and is failing many of her classes. When she found out that she has to be held back a grade, her mother screamed at her. I stepped in and told my niece that it's okay, and that I'll help her get her grades up next year. I tried to talk to my sister, but she always ends up crying, saying how hard it is to be a single mom. However, I found out that her ex-boyfriends are sending her money for the kids, but she chooses to work part-time while trying to become a beauty influencer. Meanwhile, I've been taking care of the kids. They've become very attached to me and spend all their time in my part of the house. My sister hasn't seemed to care much. The main issue came when my 14-year-old niece won a prize for young storytellers. She wrote a story clearly coping with her home life and her abusive mother. Her story was published in a magazine. She received $500 and won a 1-week summer camp. At the ceremony, my niece thanked her siblings, my mother and me, saying, "Thank you for being the mom I never had." Ooh. Okay, I'm sorry. This is making me a little bit emotional. My sister left abruptly and reappeared yesterday. She repeatedly asked if I was saying that she was a bad mother. I tried to stay calm, but she kept pushing it until I finally exploded and unloaded everything: the neglect, the lack of supervision, the emotional abandonment. I told her that she was not fulfilling her responsibilities as a mother and that her kids deserved better. My sister, still furious, refused to listen and continued yelling, saying that she was doing her best and I had no right to interfere. I told her that her best wasn't good enough and that her kids were suffering because of her actions. I reiterated that the kids deserve a stable, nurturing environment and that I couldn't stand by and watch them be neglected. My sister ran away and told her daughter that if they hated her so much, then they were dead to her. My parents are confused and hurt that they didn't see what was going on. My mother's been crying since she found out, and my father, who has a temper problem, screamed some very threatening things at my sister. My nieces and nephews are distraught. The 10-year-old is furious at the 14-year-old for saying what she did because he thinks their mother is going to take them away, and the 16-year-old had a huge panic attack and fell down. I haven't properly slept, and my sister is sending me messages every 10 minutes telling me their life was good before me. I'm at the end of my rope. Did I do something wrong? Should I have just kept my mouth shut? Yo, you got to call CPS on this one. The neglect is bad enough, but mold growing on children's hair? I literally didn't even know that was possible. They are psychologically and physically in danger. You get 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving the sister, oh man, I'll say 4.5 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for telling my sister's kids the real reason they got divorced? My sister Lisa, who's 36, just divorced her husband Tom, who's 38. It wasn't really a messy business, although there was some mudslinging on both sides. Lisa's been running around telling everyone that her husband had an affair, but the truth of the matter is that she's been having affairs for years. He finally found out and decided to end things. Only a few family members know this. We've all kept it quiet to protect her. Lisa and Tom have 2 kids, Jake, a 15-year-old boy, and Emma, a 12-year-old girl. They have not been handling the divorce well and have acted out quite a bit. Lisa has been portraying herself as the victim, and because of this, the children resent Tom. They don't even want to see him, and when they do, they're openly hostile during the very limited time they have together. Last weekend, I had Jake and Emma over, and they began to vent about their dad. I tried to be objective with them, but they just kept hammering their dad. Jake said, "Mom told us Dad cheated on her, and that's why they split up. I hate him for breaking up our family." Exasperated, I blurted, "Your dad isn't the cheater. It's your mom who's been deceiving you." Well, they were obviously in shock and wanted more, so I told them everything. When Lisa found out, she was furious. She said that I'd betrayed her and put her kids in an even worse position than they were in before. My mom said that I did the right thing. My dad thinks that I should have kept quiet. Tom is glad that everything's out in the open, though he too thinks that it should have been Lisa who told them the truth. Now Jake and Emma are both bewildered and upset at both of us. They're not talking to Lisa, and that's been very painful for her. She says that I've destroyed her relationship with her kids, and that I'll never know what it's like to want to protect your kids from a painful truth. Oh my God, what bullcrap. So she wants to protect her kids from the painful truth when she's the one who's cheating, but she has no issue whatsoever protecting her kids from the painful truth when it's the dad who's allegedly cheating. This woman. Sorry, I got a little upset there. So, am I the butthole for telling my sister's kids the real reason she got divorced? No, OP, you are not the butthole. Your sister Lisa is actual scum. I'm giving her 4 out of 5 buttholes. She's a real piece of work. I'm giving you 0 out of 5 buttholes. If you like this content, Hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.